Okay, this is 7-3, numbers 14 and 18. So for number 14, we're looking at this question here, and we always want to look for the outside exponents first. So this parentheses doesn't have one. This parenthesis does have an outside exponent, so we're going to deal with that first. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by each exponent inside. And every number has an exponent, whether it shows or not. If you don't see one, then it's a 1. So I'm just going to put, to show what I'm talking about, I'm going to put a 1 here just so that we remember that it's there. Okay, so if there is no exponent, it's always a 1. So the first parenthesis is going to stay the same for now. And then in the second parenthesis, we now have 1 times -1. So we have f to the -1. And then 4 times -1 is -4. So we have g to the -4. And then now that we've done that, now that we don't have any numbers out here anymore, now we can combine the numbers that have the same base. So if it has the same base and they're being multiplied, right? Because these, I could rewrite this without the parentheses and it would be the same. I'm just saying that I'm just multiplying all of these together. Now that there are no exponents outside the parentheses, I could rewrite this in this way and it would be exactly the same, right? They're all just being multiplied together. So when they're being multiplied, then I can add the exponents of the ones with the same base. Since these are both f's, I can just add the exponents. So that's f2 be plus -1, which is the same thing as 2 minus 1. So that would, yeah, it's the same as 2 minus 1. And then g, 3/2 plus -4 is the same thing as -4. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look at subtracting these fractions. So I just want to remind us that when we're subtracting fractions, we have to get a common denominator. So since this has a denominator of 2, we need to get a denominator of 2 over here. So right now it has an invisible denominator of 1, so we multiply it by 2 over 2 to get that denominator of 2. So 3/2 minus 8/2. And now I can just subtract the numerator and the denominator stays the same. So we get -5 over 2. And so in my next step here, I have f to the 2 minus 1 is 1. And g to the -5/2. All right, I'm going to erase this stuff about fractions. So if you need to pause the video and write it down, do that now. Okay. So our last step here is, again, remember that we can't have a negative exponent in the answer. So when you have a negative exponent, you have to remember that this is over an invisible 1, and you bring anything with a negative exponent to the denominator or to the other side. If it's already in the denominator, you bring it up to the numerator. But since it's in the numerator, we're going to bring it down to the denominator. And while we're doing that, I don't have to write this 1. So in my final answer, I'm just going to write it as an f without a 1. And then in the denominator, I have my g to the 5/2. Because bringing it to the denominator makes my exponent positive. So this would be the final answer for number 14. Okay, so let's get ready to do number 18. Again, if you need to pause and back up the video because you weren't done writing, then go ahead and do that. Okay. So for number 18, again, the first thing I'm going to look and see is if there are exponents outside of a parenthesis that I need to distribute first. And so I see that here I have a 2. So that 2 needs to be distributed to the 4 and the t to the negative 9. So remember the 4 has an invisible 1 right there. So I have 7, t to the 11th, u to the 3rd. And then I have negative 4. Now, this time the exponent, because it's outside the parentheses, and the negative is inside the parentheses, when I multiply the 1 times the 2, I need to show that that exponent applies to the negative 4, not just the 4, the negative 4, because the negative is inside the parentheses. That's really important. So this becomes negative 4 squared, because the negative is inside this parentheses and the 2 is outside the parentheses, so it applies to the negative as well. And then I have t to the negative 9 times 2, so that's t to the negative 18, and u to the negative 5. Okay. In my next step, I want to figure out what negative 4 squared is, because then I'll just have regular numbers and I'll be able to deal with them. So negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4. So that's positive 16, because a negative times a negative is positive. So this is going to be positive 16. And we still have u cubed, t to the 11th, 7, t to the negative 18, u to the negative 5. Okay, now we can combine things that have the same base. We can also combine regular numbers that don't have exponents. So I can do 16 times 7, and I can combine my t's, and I can combine my u's. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get 16 times 7. Oops, sorry. I'm going to get 16 times 7, which is 112. Oopsies. 112, 16 times 7. And then I'm going to do t to the 11 minus 18, and u to the 3 minus 5. So that's 112. T 11 minus 18 is negative 7. And u to 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So I have to make sure that I take my negative exponents. Anything with a negative exponents needs to be taken to the denominator. So remember, there's an invisible 1 right here. So my final answer is going to be 112 over, I'm going to bring t to the 7 to the denominator, and I'm going to bring u squared to the denominator. So anything with a negative exponent comes to the denominator, and the exponents become positive. All right. I will see you guys in the next video.